Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is the Series 7 Guru, aka Dean Tenney, coming to you from my off-grid studio, Geeking Our Kicks on Route 66. Let's see. Brian's having some audio problems. Let's see if we can get Brian in here. Brian? Still no audio, Brian. I'll keep trying to plug you back in when you get some audio. I don't know what the problem is. Oh, well. We'll take care of some housekeeping. Maybe by the time we get this figured out, Brian will be able to join us. If you do have a question, we're here every Tuesday, kind of a ritual we have, 5 p.m. Arizona time. So Arizona doesn't change time. So sometimes that's Pacific time, sometimes Mountain time, depending on what's going on around the rest of the country. Right now, Arizona time is the same as Pacific time. So that's when we're here. We're here every Tuesday. If you do have a question about content, just put that in there. Let us know what exam you're taking, because the content is different on the exams, even though there may be overlap. Sometimes we'll be able to figure it out. Sometimes maybe not. April Fool's Day. I posted as an April Fool's Day joke that FINRA NASAA have announced that they're lowering scores, passing scores to 68. Effective immediately, and I had a couple people fall for it. So now guys having a joke, he's saying they've also said you can use AI to take your exams, which is not true. If you are looking for a free supplement to your paid study materials, look no further than my channel. It is the best free supplement for your paid study materials. I've organized the channel on series playlists, so you find your series exam, SIE, for example. There's 3 playlists. There's a podcast series. There's lectures, there's practice tests. Those playlists for your series exam are in suggested watch order, and the videos in it are in suggested watch order. So if you want to binge, that's the way to do it. If you're looking for a particular topic, please use the channel search bar. Put accrued interest or margin, and that will magically appear. We get asked the same questions over and over again. We don't mind answering them, but asked and answered many, many times. So AI investment advisor rep continuing ed, for example, you just put that in the search bar, that particular content will come up. If you are looking for a paid supplement, if you don't already have a Kaplan Qbank, I highly recommend that. 3,600 questions on the Series 7, performance tracker, custom quizzes, so on and so forth. The Kaplan discount code is Guru15 at checkout. It works for all Kaplan products and services. Brian, our VIP guest, Test Geek Exam Prep, gives our customers, our viewers, a 20% discount, and that discount code is Guru20. Nobody does a better job as distillation of the content, testable content from your study prep vendor to the actual exam. And what I like is his practice test is spot on. It has very strong correlation to the actual exam. We also do a weekly Q&A, a jam session on my booking page. My booking page is deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. And most of the stuff there is paid. But if you're looking to join us for our jam session, we're having one tomorrow. That's free. We have a book club that's free. We have free office hours for paid students. That's also where you find tutoring. If you're looking for tutoring, it's on my booking page. That's deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. And what else do we have going? We have coaching calls there. So there's lots of stuff there. Everything on the YouTube channel is free. Everything. I don't sell coffee cups or T-shirts or baseball caps, all completely free. The booking page is the opposite. It's almost all paid content. Tutoring, shared screen practice tests, that kind of thing, some classes. But as I mentioned, there are some free things there for you. And again, you can find that at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. We also have social communities. We have a Facebook community called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. Baby Brokers is a term of endearment for rookies in the securities industry. A hat trick is 3 successes in a limited time frame. And so that's available. We also have Reddit communities. We have a Reddit community for Series 6, our Series 6. We have an SIE Reddit thread. That's our Series 7. That's for the SIE and Series 7. We have for 63, 65, 66, our Series 66. For 9s, 10s, 24s, 57s, 79s, we have R Series 24. So those are all of our different Reddit communities. All right, so let's get started. Boom. And let's see what we got going on. Let's see what we got going on in comments. Maybe Brian will be able to figure this out and join us. For Series 66, can you help with who notifies when you leave a business? The IA, the IRA, the agent, broker-dealers. Let's start with broker-dealers. As an agent of the broker-dealer will file the U5. You get a copy. But you're responsible for making sure that, you've been properly disassociated from the firm. So not good if somebody starts talking about U5. IA, it depends on what kind of IA you are. If you're federally covered IA, the state doesn't really interact with your firm. You do. So the investment advisor rep would be the one who would tell the state they're no longer affiliated with the federally covered advisor. If you're state covered, then it would be your firm and yourself would tell the state that you're no longer affiliated. All right. Yeah. Sending positive vibes. You're not alone. So one great thing about our Tuesday night ritual is that you're not alone. You can actually, have people who are simpatico. Get some fun, get some fellowship. If you have a bad day, somebody to buck you up. So please make sure you check in. We love returning victorious test takers. They're always welcome. Always good for morale to have a victorious test taker circling back. Past the 7. All right, Simon. That's not for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for Simon. We ring the bell for victorious test takers. And It's a Wonderful Life, a classic banking movie. If you want to understand banking, fractional banking, no better movie than It's a Wonderful Life. And in there, whenever a bell rings, Clarence says that's an angel getting their wings. And so in our Tuesday nights, that's a victorious test taker in the house. Now, not sure why you wouldn't take my word of what's on the Series 7, but always good to have a victorious test taker. If Simon sticks around, maybe you can ask Simon what his thoughts are. Now, remember, when you ask a victorious test taker, or a not victorious test taker, all draws of the test are different. So I don't know if Simon got a face of death draw and he still took it down, or he got a dream draw. We got to be prepared to take down any draw of the Series 7 or any exam for that matter. That's why you want to overlearn, right? You don't want to be wobbly. Taking the 7th Thursday, and I appreciate your explanation since I have comprehension challenges. You found the challenge very valuable. Great. I'm glad to hear that. It's always very gratifying when the YouTube channel contributes to testing victories. It's a pretty easy business. Test prep, preparing people to pass tests. If they pass and we can contribute to that, they're very happy. That's what has made this channel the #1 NASA FINRA exam prep channel, is testing victories and the referral from victorious test takers. We've passed over 6 million views. Crazy. We have over 1.5 million watch hours. So I'm glad that you found it helpful. I try. Hey, listen, I'm a retired broker. So, a tiger doesn't change its stripes. And this guy most people love the channel. This guy, not so much. I said, well, go find another channel. I am who I am. So I'm not for turning at this stage of my life. Taking my 7 April 19th, Qbank. I love the usage rate, Christopher. 45%. I'm not sure. Qbank. Oh, you're averaging 75%, but your usage is only 45. Now, I'm a little different, Christopher. And I guess maybe it's my, corporate background or owning my own broker dealer. And when somebody missed their mark, Christopher, the first thing I would do is go backstage, use my admin key, and see what their Qbank usage rate is. There's a direct correlation to Qbank usage and not passing the exam. I'm not saying you have to exhaust the Qbank. I, as a test taker, buffet, take what you like, leave what you don't. I, as a test taker, always have on my agenda the goal of exhausting the Qbank. So if it's Series 7, the Kaplan Qbank is about 3,600 questions. So that would give you an idea of how many questions you would have to do each day in execution of your study plan to see if you could actually exhaust that thing. Now, there's a lot of people disagree with me, say it's a waste of time, and you should get 75% in each quiz and move on. And so those people pass. I think you should do as many questions as you possibly can. Not because you're a mouse and you get some cheese if you get through the practice question maze. No. To get intellectual marks get comfortable with phraseology, practice, drilling, and rehearsing, right? You got to kind of know what you're being asked and what the answers are. 91 to 35, I like that. 98 to 135. Feedback, I think you're right where you need to be. Keep working. April 19th, I think your timeline is looking good. I wouldn't be too worried about practice test scores as a mark until you're about 7-10 days out. So that would be what, April 10th? So another week or so to lay base, remediation, do practice questions, and then we go for it. Tips, advice for studying SIE. Well, first thing is it's usually person's first testing victory, right? And you want to go 1-0. You can't go 3-0 unless you go 1-0. And the SIE lays the base for future exams. So there is no sunken intellectual cost by working your ass off to be able to take down any draw of the SIE. You can almost pass out of a 6 if that's the next leg of your testing journey. And whatever work you do will pay dividends in your Series 7 study plan. So I'm a big fan of overlearning that. I think the first thing you should do, and I try and be nice, but we had somebody who failed the other day in social media and they said they didn't read the book. Well, I kind of respected that they said that, but I was kind of like, well, you got to read the book, you know? So that would be my first tip is read the book cover to cover, whatever book you have. Not taking notes just to see what it looks like cover to cover. Now, if you're not going to read the book cover to cover, this is for all exams, then at least watch my podcast series where I show you what it looks like cover to cover. On the SIE, I think my podcast has like 8 episodes. And maybe that puts a dent in the reading for you or helps you kind of get an overview, recon of what you're going to be up against in terms of your exam, in this case, the SIE. Once you've read that book, then you circle back and you read each unit, each chapter, you do a quiz, 25, 30 questions, you get 70% or more, you move on to unit 2 and take a custom quiz, 25, 30 questions, 70% plus, 75. You do not move on. Pay attention. You do not move on. Now you do a custom quiz of unit 1 and unit 2. You want to keep bringing up that caboose, 50 questions. Now you go to unit 3, rinse and repeat. You got to do custom quiz on unit 3, 75%. You do not move on. You do unit 1, 2, 3. Now, as I mentioned, at some point now, you're ready for your practice test. You've done all your units. You've done your quizzes to see that you're, setting up the base you need. And now we turn to doing those practice tests to get an intellectual inventory, a mark of where you're at. We're not trying to learn it by doing practice tests. We're trying to get marks of where we're at so we know where we can identify areas of remediation. So that's an overview. I do have a podcast episode called Building a Study Plan, but that's, a 50,000 foot view of it. On our tutoring session, you go to my booking page, and here is the booking page. Boom. And there's a tab called tutoring, and you just hit that tab and you can buy an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever strikes your fancy. Let's see, I lost where we were at. Man, we're busy tonight. Busy. Rate taking the 6 on Friday. Got 64 the first time. Been scoring 75, 85 on Kaplan. Taxes, funds, suitability tripped me up the most. Advice before Friday. This is Tuesday. I would like you to do another practice test and get another score. I like those scores on Kaplan. Well, go to my this YouTube channel, and in the Series 6 playlist, there's a couple Series 6 practice tests. Do a different one from Kaplan just to confirm that score. You're going to drop a little bit because you're going to have different phraseology. I think I have a Notman Marks 6 exam up there. I think I have a Test Geek up there. I may or may not have an STC one, but do another one just to confirm where you're at, right? I hope you're all having a good Friday. 66 option contracts. If you tell me you missed the 66 because of options or derivatives, 65, the same answer, you had other problems elsewhere. There are much bigger problems. Profit means selling the contract, not necessarily. Well, in futures, option contracts, yes. Remember, derivatives on 65 and 66, you have both options and you have futures, and a little bit different. But yes, for protection, you're going to buy a put to protect a long stock position. To protect a short stock position, you're going to buy a call. So you're buying insurance. Insurance, you have to pay a premium. So that's true. And profit means selling the contract. I don't know that. I don't like that because that depends. You could be selling the contract at a loss. So I don't like that you say profit means selling the contract. That depends on what you sold it for. But how do you determine if it's a call or put? Well, in futures, there is no call or put. In futures, there is no call or put. You simply buy futures or sell futures, and it's much simpler than options. If you think the price is going up, you buy futures. Period, full stop. You think the price is going down, you sell futures. Period, full stop. Now, this is where you profit or loss when you close out the futures contract. There's no call or put involved. It's just buying the futures. If you're right and the price of cocoa goes up, maybe we're buying futures on cocoa beans, right? And you're right, then that futures contract goes up in value, you close it out, and that's your profit, right? If you think cocoa's going down, you short cocoa futures. And if you're right, you close it out, and that's where we determine the profit or loss. You're either speculating on cocoa or not, right? Hershey is not a speculator when it's buying futures on cocoa. They're buying futures to hedge, the cocoa beans are going to need in the future. So if you're the CEO of Hershey and you say, Dean, I'm the CFO, you say, Dean, we're getting killed on the inputs here to make our, Hershey bars. We're getting killed on the spot market for cocoa. I said, well, I do have some good news for you. And you say, what would that be? I said, well, I've hedged the cocoa prices by buying futures on cocoa. And the futures contract has gone up in value, and that profit on our futures contract will offset some of the loss we have in the cash market. So you're either speculating or hedging it. If you're hedging, you're doing in the futures market today what you're going to do in the cash market later on, right? So if I'm Hershey and I'm going to be buying cocoa in the cash market, I'm going to buy the futures. If I'm going to be selling something, I'm selling soybeans, right? I'm going to short the soybean futures. Again, you're the CEO of this major farming operation where we have thousands of acres of soybeans. I'm the CFO, and you say, Dean, we're getting killed. The price of soybeans is going down. I said, well, I got some good news for you, some good news. I have a hedge in place. I've shorted the futures, and those contracts are less valuable than what I sold them for. We have a profit in the futures position that will offset our loss in the cash or spot market. So that's if you're hedging. If you're speculating, it's pretty simple, right? You just buy futures or sell futures depending on where you're bullish or bearish. Option contracts have strike prices, so it's a little different. And there they would tell you whether it's a call or a put. Failed the 65 last week. Back at studying. I've Kaplan, just bought Brian's videos. In what order would you recommend to study and how? Well, I think have you scheduled? You don't have to wait to schedule your date as long as it's 30 days out. So I would do that right now. I'd go get a date 30 days out and reverse engineer that. Maybe take a few days to refresh and reset. And then the way I would start is by going back to the test specifications published by NASA. And I would do an intellectual inventory with yourself, intellectual debrief. And I go through each item on the test specifications to kick off my new study plan. And I'd put a plus, 0, or minus. Plus means you intellectually own it. You don't think that's something that did you in. You're above par, par being passing. 0 means you're at par. It matches perfectly, by the way, with your printout. A minus means these are things I need to work on. Now, you want to bring everything above par because the draws can be different. So you don't want to prepare for the draw you just took because the new draw may be different, but it will help you find the areas for remediation. It's counterintuitive, but you'd like to see hopefully a lot of minuses there where now you can target that information. Now that you have Brian's videos, I think I would kick off my study plan by watching Brian's videos. Again, to see what it's like cover to cover. I'd put his PDF away. And what I mean by putting his PDF away, he's got some class notes, but on the class notes in that PDF is a practice test which has very strong correlation. And I would like you to maybe 2 days out as a final check, do that test geek practice test. That score has very strong correlation of how you're going to do on the actual exam. What do you do for a living? What do I do for a living? I'm a retired stockbroker. I had somebody the other day thinks I'm a tutor. I'm not. And so, I do tutor. I accidentally fell into a YouTube channel where I'm, you know, doing this, but I'm a retired stockbroker. I did very well in the securities industry. Sometimes people don't know that about me. And I feel like saying, listen, I don't need to. I had a guy today. I don't solicit tutoring. I don't need it. And my family gives me grief because I have plenty of money without doing any of this. Right? So if you're poor, Gus, and you deserve to be rich, the securities industry is a wonderful industry. In fact, I have right next to me, someday I'll guys give you a tour of the studio. And I have to decide, Gus, whether I'm going to put somebody in that chair next to me and ramp up the YouTube channel and the tutoring, or I'm going to dial it back down because work, Gus, is the last refuge for people that have nothing better to do. And I certainly do. So it's hard for me to keep that balance. But thanks for asking. So I don't do anything for a living. I'm retired. Gus, isn't this a wonderful place to be able to tell your customer, Dean has enough money working for him that Dean doesn't need to work for his money any longer? I used to love, Gus, to be able to call my client and say, hey, Gus, we've arrived at our financial destination. You now have enough money working for you, Gus, that you don't need to work for your money. Tomorrow, if you want, instead of calling in sick, you can call in rich. You can say, I'm not coming to work today. And they say, why? You say, I have an eye problem. They say, Gus, what's wrong with your eye? You say, I can't see coming to work. I failed the 66 last month, retaking on Friday with no room for failure. Any last minute tips? I have, Grayson, 100% pass rate. Here we go. I'm going to give you something that has 100% pass rate. Before I give you that, I want you to be confident in the execution of your study plan. I want you to be confident in yourself. Most importantly, on Friday, you got to be confident in your answers. So this is Tuesday. So after we conclude this live stream, Grace, and I want you to go into your bathroom. I want you to look in the mirror, and I want you to say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest Series 66 test taker of them all? Grayson, Grayson, Grayson. Hoorah! I want you to do that in the morning, Wednesday morning. I want you to do that Wednesday night. I want you to do that Thursday morning. And last time, Friday morning, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest test taker of them all? Grayson, Grayson, Grayson. Woo! Series 7 in Kentucky. Oh, man, I love Kentucky. I'm not drinking a bourbon tonight. I got a nice fine tequila here, but I love my bourbon. Welcome. Welcome. We used to do a thing in my tribe called Derby de Mayo. And what we would do is combine the Kentucky Derby with Cinco de Mayo. And you get the idea here. We're going to have mint juleps and we're going to have margaritas. And you know, we like our adult beverages. But I thought, man, how in the world did we get so drunk so quick? I had thought I had bought margarita mix. And we pour a pretty heavy margarita anyways. But come to find out, we were making margaritas out of margaritas. We were making doubles. So it was hilarious. Third time. Well, the third time, as you know, Matt, is kind of a real significant at bat. And the reason that third at bat is really important is because if you miss your third attempt, you have a 6-month wait. Ugh. And that is just not bueno. So make sure you do on the 7th. So this is what, the first, you got about 6 more days. You got a 68 and 7. I'd be more interested, Matt, in knowing what your practice test scores are. Now, if you could participate in the chat and you put something in the chat, everybody can see your business. So just so you know, Matt, but I'd be interested in a different data point. I'm not so interested in the 68 and 70 and missing your mark as a data point. What I'd like to know is what is your practice test scores here on the first, because you're about 7 days out. So we have time to do maybe 3 or 4 more marks through practice tests. And that would be where I'd want to be. So we have a margin of safety, and we know we have a margin of safety before you go into the cave to slay the Series 7 dragon, right? If you want to put Matt, I'm running behind. We got 50 plus people in here. So Matt, I'll stick around tonight. I lost Brian because he was having audio problems. So since Brian is gone, I'll just stick around. I'll make sure I get back to you. So if you want to put that back in the chat, I'll get to you eventually, and we can, based on that practice test score, have a further discussion. Took the 65 yesterday, missed by 5. Okay, well, Tanya, I think you heard me perhaps already talk about what I think you should do in terms of how to respond to that. I will, in the video description, not maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, have a put in my podcast episode with my 5 recommendations about how to respond to that misfortune. That podcast episode is called "You Failed, Is It Over?" Spoiler alert, the answer is no, right? And it has some recommendations. That's really surprising, Tanya, that you had negative variance from Brian's test. That's not typical. So that variance is bothersome because that's not what we would expect. 30 days, we'll schedule 1 hour tuning, right on. I like to tutor about 7-10 days out as we're putting the pedal to the metal, accelerating. So like today, somebody told me they're testing in May. I go, well, I don't mind tutoring you today. I'm prepared to do so, but I'd be afraid that we might forget what we do today by the time we get there, even though we're recording it. So I like to start tutoring, 7, 10 days out, 14 days out. And what I'm hoping, Tanya, if you're doing tutoring, whether it's me or some other tutor, you kind of have an agenda. When you sign up for my tutoring, I say, what do you want to talk about? I mean, I have things to talk about if you don't, but it's better if you have like a list. I had a guy for 24 tutoring. I really appreciate it. He had exactly what he wanted to talk about. He had examples of questions he was struggling with, and it was a great session. Can I go over business development companies and spinoffs, taking the 7 tomorrow? Well, I would think of a business development company as kind of a mutual fund for venture capital kind of investments, right? So I don't think it's going to be anything other than knowing that these are, small businesses and therefore more speculative in investments. And we're going to make those investments in the context of kind of like a mutual fund. A spinoff would be a company spinning off one of its subsidiaries. So like Bank of America decides to spin off Merrill Lynch and says for every 100 shares of Bank of America, here's 700 shares of or 70 shares of Merrill Lynch. So the spinoff is going to be a company parent spinning off a subsidiary. Right. Kaplan, for example, is a subsidiary of Graham Holdings. And so Graham Holdings might say, we're going to make Kaplan not a subsidiary, but an independent company. For every 100 shares of Graham Holdings, here's, 23 shares of Kaplan. They're talking about doing spinoffs for some of the, for Google. One of the antitrust department, Alphabet, has said that Google should spin off as independent operations. Its search engine, its YouTube, those are things. I'm a fan of Alphabet, so I'm like, no, I don't want to be. I want to be part of Google's, empire. I don't think tomorrow afternoon, Gabriel, tonight, more importantly, is not BDCs or spinoffs. Tonight is just getting a good night's rest, being on top of your reading form, because, your reading skills, when I'm tired, my reading skills are greatly diminished. So I wouldn't worry about either of those tomorrow as being material to your success, right? But make sure you get some rest. Because to be honest with you, Gabriel, the execution of your study plan is over. It was over noon today. It's over. So now what you got to do is just work on putting on your game face, guarding your psyche, staying away from energy vampires, making sure nobody steals your chi on the way to the Prometric site. Now it's not about knowledge base. It's about all these other little variables. So make sure you get some sleep tonight. Hello, Legends of Sleepy Hollow. All right. Ichabod. I had Medicare questions. That's interesting, Tanya. Crazy. It sounds like you had a really weird draw. Well, yeah, I'm with you. I'd rather have option questions too. Do you recall what Medicare kind of questions you had? That's kind of an odd, it sounds like you had an odd draw for sure. I hope I passed my 65. Is Brian what? I know Yasha, he tried to join us, but for some reason, I've been trying to get him to invest in a studio like I have here, right? I mean, he makes enough money to do it. And, I know how much he's committed to his whiteboard. But tonight, Yasha, I was kind of frustrated a little bit with him. If you're watching this, Brian, you're my bud. You're my brother from another mother. That being said, he's got his whiteboard and he's got his laptop. And I'm like, yeah, where's your audio? Your audio. So I didn't toss him out. Yasha, I told him to try and fix it. And I think after 4 or 5 attempts, I think he just decided perhaps. I don't think there's any games on tonight, but boy, I'm sure looking forward to seeing the ladies, UConn. I'm looking forward to UCLA, that game. Boy, the ladies are something else. And I'm certainly interested, Josh. I'm an NBA fan, by the way. So I one time taught a class and I forgot it was being videotaped. Good news, we didn't say anything untoward. But after class, we're on our own time. And this guy and I were shooting the breeze for like 2-3 hours about basketball. But the other one, Josh, I'm interested in is I would like to see Cooper Flagg. Hard to believe that kid's 18 years old. I mean, crazy. He should be a senior in high school. And just to see that much talent in a young man like that is just, it just warms my heart. So those are the two I'm interested in. I passed the rest of my licenses donating $100 and writing that off. Okay, cool. Well, I mean, I get people with super chats. I had a guy the other day. Well, this was kind of fun. There's lots of free content. It's lots of free content. I mean, and we are well fortunate that some people who pay for tutoring give me permission to put the replay of their tutoring session or their shared screen final on the YouTube channel. I never do it without permission. I had a guy who's doing it the other day and he goes, well, I want this recording to be mine. I go, it is yours. I mean, you're recording it, not me. And it doesn't show up on the channel unless you give me permission. Anyways, long story short, well, I hit the button to join the tutoring session. And the guy said, Dean, I just didn't know how to do a super chat or make a donation. So I just bought this hour because I wanted to say hi and I wanted to say thanks. And so, just keep the hour tutoring fee and thank you so much. I thought, wow, that was cool. I thought that was very cool. I will agree with the statement you made with another student. My firm is past perfect. Past perfect in terms of vendors. It's better to have too much than not enough. However, that too much can really bog you down. You can really get in the weeds. I don't know what exam you're taking, but I had a person was using past perfect and her company was in what's called locked learning. And what that meant was she couldn't do past perfect chapter 19 until she was able to get like 85% on chapter 18. It ended up being the margin chapter. And I felt really bad. She paid me to do those questions with her so she could move on. And they're margin questions from past perfect that she's never going to see anywhere on an actual exam. She did give me permission. I put it in the channel. It's called Margin Questions from Hell. Margin questions you would never, ever expect. Now, I told a very senior person at Kaplan that Past Perfect sales team deserves a bonus because what I think Past Perfect has done is told these major financial institutions that not only when you use Past Perfect will people pass the test, they'll also be able to go into production. Now, I totally disagree with that. I think product knowledge comes from sales efforts, not taking tests. But I think that's part of the allure of Past Perfect to these financial institutions. Can be challenging. I sometimes think about starting a Past Perfect support group, for people. Now that's better than not enough. So I have somebody, and every time they tell me they're using Exam FX or Trading Consult, like, that's too skinny, right? So Past Perfect's too fat. I think Exam FX Trading Consult's a little too skinny. Somewhere in that medium range would be Kaplan, STC, Notman, Marks. There you go. Marcel, good to talk to you finally. We finally got it together in terms of talking in person. I never win your contest for help. I will tell mom hello for sure. We do a drawing at the end, and what you win is not a tutoring at a date and time of your choice. What you win is access to a weekly coaching call for the winners. So you would go to my booking page. It says coaching call for weekly winners. But Marcel, he won so many times. I think it would be hard for you to know, Marcel. We're pushing 60 people tonight. Anyways, but he won so much, I just said, let's just do a tutoring session and get you off the books. I have a contingent liability to my friend Marcel. Passed. All right. Woo. Wow. That's crazy. So you did we call that the hat trick. He did the hat trick, 3 testing registration victories in 1 month. That's crazy. You did the, Series 3. So you're doing something with futures, I guess, in terms of speculation or hedging. That's fantastic. Kudos, Johnny. Kudos. Once you're in the registration mode, by the way, I really believe you should knock them all down, right? You should just keep going. So, I would prefer he didn't wait a few months from his SI, but hey, that's still wonderful. But once I don't think a month, I would not have the expectation as a corporate trainer somebody's going to knock out these things in a month. That being said, though, once you're in the registration test taking mode, keep knocking them down, right? Fax Dean, yeah, I don't know what that means. I think that's from an earlier comment. I think Isaac, do I have my reschedule for the 23rd? So I made my way. Okay, cool. You know, you want to again have a test date. Best practice is to have a test date. And I can't tell you how many times I get done with a tutoring session. I said, but the next time I see you, you better have a tutoring date or test date, right? Because your brain does better knowing it has a date certain where you got to go, you know, take the test, and that will draw you to that date. So best practice is to have a date. I have people sometimes tell me they're studying, and then when they're done studying, they're going to get a date. That is not the way to proceed. That is not the way to proceed. There you go. Woo! Yeah, 6. I think you're in pretty good shape. I would check out customer accounts again, always low-hanging fruit, and disclosures, communications. Any specific videos? No, I have a Series 6 tutoring play that's pretty good. Yeah, I don't have as many content for 6. That's true. So, you know, whatever's there, though, I do have some really good mutual fund overview tutoring replays there. I check that out, and then I would check out my Series 6 in 60 minutes. Boy, I like your avatar. Kind of looks like Whataburgers. Sign, Walter. Just past the 7. All right. Woo! Series 63 is a little different in this regard, Walter. I had said previously for series exams that we're using practice tests as intellectual inventories to get marks. We're not using practice tests as mice who get through the maze and get some cheese. We're trying to get marks and do remediation. In a 63, I really recommend that you do every practice question possible to you and practice, drill, and rehearse all of those practice questions. So that would be my advice. Make sure you do as many practice questions as possible for your 63. It shouldn't take you long, regardless of what test prep vendor you're working, because a 63 is much smaller content, right? And the big thing to focus on, Walter, in that exam, all NASA exams in this category, in 65 and 66, this is about half the test. In 63, it's the entire test. Laws and registrations. You know, NASA calls it laws and regulations. Dean calls it law and registrations. And what you want to focus on, the biggest part of these NASA content as relates to law and registrations, is disclosures and unethical business practices. So disclosures and unethical business practice. We don't do breakpoint sales. We don't sell dividends. We don't front run. You know, we don't lie. We don't cheat. We don't steal. My last 3 Series 65 were 69, 72, 74. Okay, cool. I like that. I'm through about 60 per, getting closer. Love it. 3 weeks. That's right where you need to be. Right. I call the 747 principle. You know, a 747 takes 120% of rated power to get off the ground. So initially, when you're initiating your study effort, you're like a 747. Seat back, nose up, trying to get that study plan off the ground. It only takes a 747 70% of rated power to fly. So you're in flight. Once you're in flight, you just got to keep the plane in the air, and then you got to make sure you got enough fuel to stick the landing, right? So you want to make sure you don't run out of fuel 2 weeks in when you got a 3-week test date. And some people sometimes don't time that right, and now they're circling the airport and running out of fuel. So, you know, pace yourself. You want to, again, be accelerating as you get closer to your test date. You know, I've had people, I said, well, listen, we don't want to accelerate too soon because, you know, we want to be peaking as we're testing, right? We want to be going that way. I think it's very realistic. I like exactly where you are. If I were your corporate trainer, your accountability partner, I'd be happy to sit down with you and you're telling me, Dean, here's where I'm at and here's my time frame. I say, well, it looks like we're on course. Stay the course. Stay the course. There you go. Yeah, Mo, I think a little different. It's kind of interesting. When I started the channel, I only had my content up there, exams that I've written and my own proprietary content. And somebody had said, well, gee, maybe you could put other people's content on there. And I go, well, see if they give me permission. I got permission from Kaplan and STC and Notman Marks to put content on there. And then Lauren was the first one who actually, we did a practice test together. And she said, hey, Dean, this might help some other people. Why don't you put us together doing this on the channel? I go, oh, I got your permission. And she goes, yeah. And the producer me is kind of like, I thought, Mo, who's going to want to watch Lauren and I for 4 hours do a practice test, right? You can speed it up. You can put the video on, fast forward. But I guess Misery Loves Company, Mo, because those have been way more popular than watching Dean and hit pause and play, and then I come back and tell you what the answer is or whatever. So the struggle, I guess, speaks to people. And boy, we have a lot of practice tests up there, right? The SIE, I think I got, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those things. Remember, people pay for those, Mo. And so I've had people like, oh, you should do this, and you should do that. And I said, well, listen, Lauren's doing you the favor. That wasn't something we designed for you to watch. It's somebody who's paying 800, and I think, what is it? What is 3 times 275? That's what it costs to do a shared screen test with me. And they're kind enough that then some of them to give me permission. Some people don't. Some people do. Vince, all right. Woohoo. The differences in life insurance for 65. I don't really have that. I kind of, the way I think of it, I don't know if it's helpful, Vince. I think of it as like, term is you're just buying insurance. There's no kind of cash buildup on it. It's the cheapest way to get life insurance. And then, the traditional insurance would be whole life, right? And then the whole life does have cash buildup, cash value. And then you have universal, and then you have, variable life. So I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I know you are retesting, I think, if I recall where you're at your testing journey. But if you tell me that life insurance was how you missed your mark, I'm going to say, I don't know. The thing that shows up quite a bit is what are in non-securities products. Life insurance is a non-securities product, so you don't need a 63 or 6 or 7 soon. Just a slog. I like it. That's where you need to be. Past perfect. Those past perfects. Good news. Very rarely does somebody not improve from a past perfect practice test score to the actual exam. The variance works in your favor because, as I said, they're way more complex than the actual exam. That's a good thing. You want to be pleasantly surprised, right? Now, if you used a past perfect the first time, then that maybe means a little problematic. So one thing you might want to consider if you're a retake and you've used anybody, Kaplan, past perfect, STC, you might want to consider getting a different voice in your head. And what I mean by that is getting some new practice questions from Kaplan, or getting a new video series, whatever the case may be. And that might be something to consider just so you have more confidence in those scores. I would have more confidence in those scores if you didn't tell us that it's a retake. So that's a retake, and it's a little different than if you're coming to it with those scores fresh. Retake is Monday. I gone through STC Qbank. Yeah, that's a danger, Alex. It's really danger. In the last live stream, and I posted it as a short on the YouTube channel about memorizing versus concepts. Now, for you, I think Monday's a little too late to get a different Qbank, but you can certainly go on the channel in the 65 playlist and find other practice tests. And what I would recommend you do is go through there, hit pause. When you see the question, come up with your answer, hit play, and get a score that confirms or doesn't confirm whatever you're getting in STC. So very rarely when people get a high score and they don't pass, because usually they pass. So when somebody says, well, I was getting 80s and I failed, it's usually because they've memorized questions and don't understand concepts. This happened in the 24 today. We had somebody who did everything they were told to do and was getting high scores, and then they missed the mark. And I would almost bet because of the high scores they said they got, that they were memorizing the questions and not understanding the concept of locked markets or cross markets, whatever it happened to be. Jeff, the answer is no. Well, you would need a 65, depending on the state, but a 66 is only going to work with a 7. So it doesn't work independently of a 7. So there would be no need to have a 765 if you already have a 66, right? So the 66 is a combination of 63, 65. So my only no is because if you're going to go work at like Fisher Investments is a fee-based investment advisory firm. They don't have a broker-dealer affiliate. So nobody there is an agent of a broker dealer. They're all 65s. And I just mentioned the 66 is a 6365. And so, the 66 is associated with a 7. It's not associated as being split up. Now, as a plan B, Jeff, when somebody misses, I think I told Vince this. I think, Vince, I don't know if we're still on that plan of attack. I think Vince and I were talking about a plan B for him because he worked very hard. I'm very rarely surprised, but I was surprised that Vince didn't make his mark. I hope I'm not putting your private business on blast, Vince. If I am, I apologize. But anyways, he knew it so well and worked so hard that I said, hey, as a plan B, I bet you could pass out of a 63, 65 and you're back in business with no 30-day wait period. And so I think we were pursuing that as a plan B. I don't assume that is a plan A. Plan A should be, if you have a 7, take a 66, right? Now, NASAA exams don't require sponsorship. So the other thing I would tell you is that if you're trying to take tests that do not require sponsorship, you could take your 65, 63, or just take your 65. It would lay a good base for you do get sponsored for a 7, because I consider it to be like a baby 7. But then you could show you have some initiative. And if you come to a meeting, you say, I already got my 66, or I've got my 63, 65, or my 65. SIE doesn't require sponsorship. As a broker dealer, I say, man, you're less of a speculative investment in human capital at that point, because, you got 2 testing victories already. And now I just got to worry about, hook you up with a 7, right? So if you're out there kind of looking for jobs in the securities industry, you don't have sponsorship, that would be a plan to consider. If an RR has, say, 20 limited partners, well, I don't know why a registered rep, Matt, would have 20 limited partners, because that means he's the general partner, and that sounds like an outside business activity problem. For who has the ability to write checks, be listed who has the ability to write checks. Well, the limited partners wouldn't be writing checks in a partnership. It would be the general partner. So the partnership resolution, if there's more than, well, anytime we open an account for a business entity, corporations or partnerships, I'll use a law firm here. A law firm would not have limited partners. It would have, general partners. And when we open up an account for a law firm that's organized as a partnership, we certainly would want a partnership resolution saying which partner can trade the account, make investment decisions, right? So RRs don't have limited partners. Broker dealers, Edward D. Jones is a partnership. And, if you work hard as a baby broker at Edward Jones, maybe someday you'll make partner, right? But you're not a limited partner. Limited partners are investment vehicles. So if I open up an account for a partnership that has limited partners, none of them are going to be directing business, telling me what to do. It's going to be the general partner. For Hall Wines of Napa, that's a partnership in Napa. They make great Cabernets. Well, all their wines are great, but Cabernets particularly. And Craig and Catherine Hall, the general partners. So I open up an account for them. None of the dozens of limited partners in the winery have anything to do with me as their broker. They're the ones who call and tell me what to do, buy or sell. And if it's going to be their senior vice president who's doing that, then I need, again, a resolution. I've watched your 6 Escalade scored 75.8. Cool. Oh, man, you're in shape, man. I'd awful be surprised. I'd be surprised you don't slay the Series 7 dragon this time. Series 6 dragon, you went in the cave. You got a good look at the dragon. He's still there. This time you know where he's hiding. You're going to go in there and you're going to slay that monster. So I have no doubts that we're going to get a victory. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I don't usually do this. Ringing the bell for your testing victory. I can't imagine you're going to slay that 6 this time. So I think you're in good shape. Do you have any curriculum to use? Yeah. I'm a fan of Kaplan for NASAA exams. So the Guru 15 discount code at checkout will get you 15% off on that. You can't go wrong with Kaplan. I also recommend, if you don't like Kaplan, STC is a good test prep vendor, Knopfman Marks. I told you I don't care for Past Perfect, and I don't care for Exam FX and Training Consultants, one because they're too fat, and the other because they're too skinny. Current market interest rates for a bond rated AA. Bhavana, I think I got something from you about could you have a tutoring session today? And I'm sorry, I'm just booked. There's no slots available until next week, and I think you were testing relatively soon. So current market interest rates for bond rated AA with 20 years to maturity is 5%. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you mean by market interest rate. There's not really a current market interest rate. This 20-year bond, that 5% is either the nominal yield on this bond, it's either the current yield on the bond, it's either yield to maturity or basis, or it's the yield to call. Okay, in an efficient market, now we're getting some more hints here. In an efficient market, we would expect this bond to have zero or close to zero net present value. So present value is, what is the present value of this bond, right? We know that we're getting $1,000 20 years from today, but $1,000 20 years from today is not $1,000 today. First concept about time value of money. The first concept of time value of money is that money today is always worth more than money in the future. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to discount the future payments I'm getting, right? Because it's going to pay me semi-annually, come up with present value for the payments, present value for the $1,000, compare it to the market price. And so based on this question, I think the 5% is the yield to maturity. A similar bond with a coupon of 4. So a similar bond with a coupon of 4 is, and now it's 5, is going to have a premium. I'm not sure you posted or pasted this correctly. Give me a QID number, but I will attempt an answer based on what the limited information you given me. I think of internal rate of return as the bridge between present value and future value. And in a bond, the yield to maturity is the internal rate of return. If I tell you the bond has a yield to maturity of 8.5%, I'm telling you that if you pay this price today, the internal rate of return will take it to its future value, right? In an efficient market, and that's the key to the question, we would expect it not to have either negative or positive net present value. So, if I do this calculation on a bond and I find out net present value is 920, let's say. Present value is 920. I can get the bond for 910. What a deal. That's $10 of net present value positive. If it's 930, that's negative. We would expect it to be neither positive nor negative in an efficient market. Any advice on getting in the industry with personal credit issues? Well, Alex just disclosed they're not automatic disqualifiers. Automatic disqualifiers, Alex, test question are called statutory disqualification. By statute, you can be disqualified. No explanation need to come forthcoming to you about why you can't be a broker. So this is a yes answer on a U4, not reasons for statutory disqualification. Then you have to disclose. And then, as long as you handle it with honor and integrity and you're not trying to defraud creditors, I've seen people get in the business. It depends on your sponsoring firm. It depends on the state administrator, but it is not an automatic disqualifier. Not an automatic disqualifier. Yeah, Derby to Mile. It's always fun, Wolf of Wall Street. Can we sell penny stocks for 50? No, you can't. The Wolf of Wall Street guys have all gone to prison, right? Leonardo is a guy named Jordan Belfort. Jordan Belfort went to Taft Federal Prison for violations of 33, making a fraudulent distribution of securities to the public. Anyways, when he went to prison, 33, you have to try really hard to go to prison in our industry. It's really difficult. But if you meet somebody in prison in our industry, it's usually for violations of 33 or 34. Anyways, his cellmate was a guy named Tommy Chong of Cheech and Chong, and they started telling stories, and he said, man, you got a lot of great stories. You should write a memoir. And Jordan Belfort said, I think I will. Well, I got nothing but time on my hands. Anyways, the guy who wrote the screenplay for the movie said he didn't want to get into, on Wolf of Wall Street, the 33 and pump and dumps and penny stocks. He got detracted from the narrative that he wanted to do, which is sex and drugs and rock and roll. So he decided that in the movie, he was just going to have Leonardo look at the screen, that's Jordan Belfort, and say, was all this illegal? And say yes, so they could get on with, the cars and the, sex and all that stuff. I thought it was kind of funny because come to find out, Wolf of Wall Street was made with dirty money. Test question. The first stage of money laundering is placement. And these guys out of Malaysia thought, man, we should set up a fake movie studio in Hollywood to launder our money. The second stage of money laundering is layering. mixing the real money with the dirty money. And the last stage is integration. And the government was asking Leonardo and Scorsese, didn't you think it was odd that this Chinese guy didn't really care about the economics of your movie? I said, no, we love it. We asked him, could we wreck 5 Ferraris? And he said, wreck 10. And Britney Spears paid Britney $10 million to come sing happy birthday to him. He's still on the lam, by the way. But what I think was funny, Rules Crypto, is that Jordan Belfort was asked to promote the movie. And he said, no, I'm on probation, and game recognizes game. I can tell you guys are like me and are crooks. So I'm going to stay away. So I understand he's now big in the crypto world. He's out of prison and doing his thing. Failed by 1 point on the 66. Took it a rush time frame. Ugh. Still felt good about the info. 1 point, man. Trevor, what I always ask is, did you change answers? Because it's not best practice. Best practice is you don't change an answer unless you know 2 things. 1, you got it wrong. 2, you know what the right answer is. Otherwise, you leave it alone. That is best practice. Now, if you want to follow best practices the dean offers to you, what does dean say? It's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. But when somebody misses the test by 1 point, the first thing I say is, change 2 answers. There we go. Right at the end. That was a bad move, my friend. Bad move. 2.5 weeks. Don't do that again, my friend. Don't do that again. Don't change your answers unless you know you got it wrong. Still don't change it. Know what the right answer is. By all means, then change it. But very rarely will you meet both parameters. I know I got it wrong, and here's the right answer. As a test taker, your flash response is your best response. Right? So, when you watch if you want to model good test taking behavior, watch game shows. When you got a guy killing on a game show, he doesn't hesitate on his answer. Right? Is that your final answer? That's my final answer. They answer quickly and they stick with their answer. And so you kind of want to model that kind of behavior. Series 24 in the house. All right. 60. Wow. April 23rd. You got time. Past perfect is really a challenging. So, I think if you got that time frame, April 23rd, Karen, I've been posting. I just did a tutoring session with a fella, and he didn't give me permission to put the video up, but I do have the questions he wanted to go over, and I'm parsing those out. I'm doing one a day, or trying to do one a day. There's one up on locked and cross markets. I don't want to put out negative energy, so I think you're in a good spot. You got to keep working. If I did a 20-person 24 class, I would expect everybody to pass. But when they don't, what they have in common is they're a packaged product person. They come from American Funds or Franklin Templeton or T. Rowe Price. And, now they've got a new product, and, they have 6s, and now they need 7s, and they have 26s, and now they need 24s. And what gets them is they have not been doing or never been involved in banking and trading. And so you want to try and bring that up to par. Now, Carol, when I get bankers and traders on the 24, they struggle with the retail component, but it's not enough to kill them. They struggle with, what is a mutual fund kind of thing. So we got questions for everybody. I think you're in good shape, but make sure you overemphasize market making, and make sure, Carolyn, you get on the inside looking out as it relates to quotes, right? That if I say 15, 16, 10 by 8, that you're really clear that that's me willing to buy that into my inventory at the bid and sell at the ask, and then the size of my quote. So that would be my recommendation for you. Where do MCA come into play? I'm not even sure, Angel, what MCA means. Just re-enter MCA. I don't know what that means. If I don't know what it means, it's not a test issue. Example, requirements or licensing. I'm not sure what that means. So put what MCA, what that means into the chat, and I'm more than happy to answer. Aaron, we met yesterday. All right. Question of the study blocks in 90 minutes. Are they more test centered or reading video centered? You should rotate, remember, your study blocks by activity. So some of those study blocks, Aaron, should be reading. Some of them should be watching videos. Some of them should be doing practicing questions. It doesn't what you feel is needed. No. In terms of an organized study plan, what is needed, that's called remediation. But your study block should be more about laying that base knowledge, right? So I think some people don't like to read. I get it. But I mean, I think you should have some reading, some video. if somebody who's reading challenge may want to do the video first to put a dent in the reading, or do the reading and then use the video to kind of confirm the issue. So I think they go together. And then practice after you read or do a video or both. Then again, you do a quiz on what you've just read or what you just watched, 25, 30 questions. You need to get a 75% to demonstrate mastery of that particular topic. And then you move on to the next topic. Pass my 7. Woohoo! Taking the 65 on my own dime and study time. I like it. Looking to do it in 3 weeks. I like it. Do you think the Kaplan book? I think it certainly is. Pizza's done. I think that's certainly enough resources to get that done. 66 tomorrow. Well, you shouldn't be here, Jose. You should be, we're on the West Coast here. I'm in Pacific time zone. But make sure you get, that's a great score and pass perfect. The variance would usually work in your favor. I think we've had 2 people tonight who are kind of conundrums, riddles, enigmas, because they actually got a higher score and then pass. That's not typical. What's typical of Test Geek and Pass Perfect and Kaplan is your actual score will be higher. So you're in good shape. Last minute things to take. No, I just told you right now. Listen, the days of cramming the night before are over. It ain't going to happen. So, as I've said, you need to conclude your study effort when executing a study plan. I think you should have concluded it this afternoon, even at lunchtime, perhaps, Jose. So it's over. Study plan has been executed. As we said, tomorrow you got to be confident in the execution of that study plan because it's safe and it's done. You got to be confident in the execution of that study plan. You got to be confident in yourself. And most importantly, tomorrow, you got to be confident in your answers, right? We talked about that. All right, we're getting close to the drawing. Hi, Dean, I test next week. What's the best advice? Last minute studies, Kaplan and Knopman. Marie, make sure you do lots of practice questions. That's 63. It's really important you try and exhaust the Qbanks that you have from both Kaplan and Knopman. That's not typical of the other exams, but on 63 particularly, that's what you want to do. 65. What determines Medicare Part B and Part D premiums? Man, Tanya, I have no idea. Individual Social Security amount? No, I don't think so. CPI, that's out. 2 other choices. I don't think it's the Social Security amount. Part B is the supplement. And I think I would have gone with that because what you pay for the supplement, I think, is means tested. So I think I would have gone with the individual Social Security amount. I thought I did great with Qbanks in 24. Didn't go well. Man, yeah. I don't have that. I do have, Richard, some like tutoring replays. I do not, and I have some practice tests that have been explicated, but I haven't had a chance to go through the 24 content outline and explicate it like I have for the other exams. So it's on my to-do list, but like I say, the channel's free and there's only so much time to do content. So it would be a while, but I'm sad that the answer to that is no. I'm pretty sure they was my dailies. Yeah, Pass Perfect is a bitch. Excuse my language, but I mean, I haven't taken a practice test yet, so get that done, Matt. We need to kind of know where you're at. Free write test, that's right. Okay, been missing 20, 30. Okay. Been through STC practice test twice. I love it. Okay. I passed the 65. Woo! Another testing bit. Woo! Wow. Amy, well, thank you so much. It's always very gratifying when our content contributes to testing victories. So thank you so much. On prepping, yeah, there you go. It's a bit of flagging. Yeah, past the 760 year back to back. Love it, Rosa. Thanks for coming in the house. Victorious test taker in the house. Whoa! I just dropped my victory bell. Pass perfect. Boom. There you go. There you go. Thanks, Dean. Took the Pass Perfect first time, average low 60s. You're going to pick it up. MSRB rules, I don't think that I would actually have base knowledge of that. The big ones to know, on SIE particularly, there are 3 ones I'd be aware of. I'd be aware of MSRB. The MSRB publishes rules. They have no enforcement power. So I would be aware on the MSRB having no enforcement power and just publishing rules. And that leads to a question, well, if they don't have enforcement power, who enforces MSRB rules? That would be the Federal Reserve Board, FDIC, and Comptroller of Currency of your bank exclusively conducting a municipal business. and SEC and FINRA if you're a broker-dealer conducting municipal business. And they publish A rules, administrative rules. We don't care about any of those. They publish D rules. There's only one MSRB D rule we care about, definitional rules, and that's the definition of a nominal quote. And I would know that a nominal quote, by definition, is for informational purposes only. So Tim says, hey, Dean, I'm going to my bank. I'm revising my financial statements, and they want to know what my mini bond portfolio is worth. I said, well, Tim, let me go through your mini bond portfolio and give you some nominal quotes. I say 105. He goes, 105? Let's sell it. I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I told you, Tim, this was a nominal quote. This isn't something I'm willing to do business at. This is for informational purposes only. On the G rules, general rules, I would know rule G20. G20 is the equivalent of FINRA's rule. It's about the gift or gratuity, the max gift or gratuity that an employee of one member firm can give to the employee of another member firm. And you should definitely know that's $100. You should definitely know it doesn't apply to normal deductible business activities, like, going to lunch with somebody, putting on a seminar, that kind of thing. And it doesn't apply to advertising. The other G rule I know about is G37 and G38. But not by number, just by context. And that's about pay to play and campaign contributions. I would know the maximum campaign contribution you can make is $250, and you have to be eligible to vote. And then one other rule I'd be aware of is that you're not allowed under MSRB rules to represent three parties in one transaction. So, for example, Friday, Morgan Stanley was representing the issue CoreWeave and the IPO. Morgan Stanley was representing itself and then selling the stock to Morgan Stanley customers. So they were representing three parties in that one transaction. In corporate finance, that is okay. But in public finance, that's not okay. The MSRB says that you can't act as a financial advisor to the municipal issuers and then switch and be an underwriter, because they think that's too much of a conflict to be representing the municipality, the issuer, representing the broker-dealer, and then selling the securities to your customer. So that would be what I'd be aware of in terms of MSRB rules. I wouldn't call that a whole study block to get that down, Tim. I'm not a fan of Achievable. I'm not a fan of Achievable, Amy, because of the variance between their practice test scores and actual scores. We talked about this variance for you 65, 66s. This is called test question standard deviation. And Achievable, in my estimation, has too much standard deviation. Some people score low on Achievable and they pass, and some people score high and then they don't pass. So my issue with Achievable is not so much the curriculum, it's their practice tests and what the correlation is to the actual exams. Second thing, Amy, is Brandon Rith, who was their content expert. So, most test prep vendors have content experts, subject matter experts. At Kaplan, for example, Series 7 is Bill James. For NASA exams, it's a guy named Chuck Lowenstein. And Brandon Rith was the writer of the Achievable content and their subject matter expert, and he has left the house. And so I'm kind of wondering, who is their subject matter expert? Who is actually keeping track of changes in content from FINRA and NASA? So I know it's kind of like a cult. Achievable kind of reminds me of Amway, that it's like multi-level marketing. I'm not one of them. So there's my 2 cents on Achievable. How do I go about signing with the session, Trevor? You go to dean10atutoring.setmore.com. I think I put that up there before. I get pretty booked up. And so, I'm booked, sometimes 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance. Once you're in the queue and get a session, I don't abandon you, if we're tutoring. Like I have a young lady, we've been working together for a long time. It's a relationship, not a transaction. Okay, I think it's almost time for our drawing here. Let's see what else we got. We're running over a little bit today. Well, James, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just put a super chat there. Let's see, we're still 47 people. My goodness, crazy. Okay, let's see what else we got here. I'm not familiar with the Android. They have 5. Well, there you go. Dean at guruexamprep.com. I'd be interested. Forward that link to me and I'll check it out. I'm also curious about achievable study. I think I just answered that, Andrew, asked and answered. I'm not a fan. I would add to that, Andrew, that I know of no financial institution that actually uses Achievable as their primary test prep vendor. And, I think it's a little deceptive that Achievable has all the brands of Edward Jones and Morgan Stanley and Merrill Lynch and Goldman Sachs. And it looks like those firms are endorsing Achievable, and it's not. If you look at the hieroglyphics in lighter font type, it says these are individuals who are using Achievable as like a supplement. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of Achievable. I'm a big fan of Brandon Rith. I'm a big fan. I don't think Achievable puts you at risk in terms of SIE, but I do think on those other exams, their Qbank could put you at risk in terms of those practice tests. Take the 65 on Thursday. Trouble with the topic, state registered IR. Who needs to be registered? Wes, in the video description, or you can do it right now on the channel search bar. I have a very popular video on just that, Wes. It's called Who's Your Daddy? Who's your daddy? And your daddy is either the SEC or the state administrator, depending on what kind of investment advisory firm you are. So I'll put the link in the video description either today or tomorrow morning, but you could put Who's Your Daddy in the channel search bar and that lecture will come up. Yeah, market making is tough. I told you, Carolyn. Be paying attention. I'm not sure if you're following the channel or if you're a subscriber, but as I told you, I have like 8 or 9 walked cross market bid ask questions that I'm putting up that I used in a tutoring session with this guy the other day. So he didn't give me permission to put our video on the YouTube channel, but I did get permission to use those questions. So look at those questions. I have a video on market making. I also have, Carolyn, a video called Know Your Bid from Your Ask. And that's a good kind of primer. That's good for everybody. SIE 765. That maybe, Carolyn, would be what I would recommend as a base. And then I would use that to transition to some other bigger issues you're going to have on your 24. The way I always say, Carolyn, is that if the customer gives me a market order, he's on the opposite side of my quote. Right? Bids 15, 16. Customer always pays the high price, always receives the low price. What's that called? The securities industry. That's my spread. And then limit order protection, he's going to be on the same side. So check those videos out and be paying attention over the next several days as I drip out these bid ask questions. So the 3 major areas. Well, let's just start with the content outline. The 7 has a narrative thread to it. Can you find a customer? Function 1. Can you open an account? Function 2. Can you make an investment? Function 3. What happens after the trade? Function 4. Function 3 is 91 questions. So you want to be spending the vast majority, Sal, of your study time in function 3, investments. In the 91 questions on investments, the 3 biggest areas are mutual funds, 20 approximate questions, give or take 5. Municipal bonds, 20 questions, give or take 5. Options, 20, give or take 5. That's 60 of the 91 questions. So that's where I would suggest you focus. I'm not saying you shouldn't learn any other stuff. I'm just saying when people miss the mark on the 7, a lot of times what they have in common is they almost passed everything. They didn't have one thing to take them over the top. So make sure you pay attention to the weighting so you can get strong. And whether it's not options, maybe it's munis, maybe it's mutual funds, hopefully all 3. Because boy, if you can max those 3 categories out on your 7 sol, you can get awful spastic and still pass the 7. If you blow one of those 3 areas, it's going to be tough to get enough points to get you across the finish line. So merchant cash advances. I've never heard of such a thing, Angel. There is no registration requirement that I'm aware of. But what do I know about merchant cash advances? It sounds like a banking kind of a thing, not a securities thing, right? I imagine what I'm factoring my receivables. So I say, hey, I've got these guys who bought tutoring from me. You can see I've got $10,000 in receivable and I would like a cash advance. I don't know. I think it might be state. I know states have various usury laws about what you can charge, but it has nothing to do with the securities industry. There's no questions at all about that on any of the NASA or FINRA exams. Woo, 30 minutes ago. It's me. Oh man, I love that. I love that. You know, and how appropriate that he has the proper avatar picture for a guy who just passed his 7. Did you just retake that beautiful picture of you smiling? You look like a victorious test taker. Woo! I love it. I love it. That is fantastic. Victorious test taker. Again, I don't know why you wouldn't believe me about what's on the Series 7, but we got a victorious test taker in the house and a fine looking gentleman at that. I always say, no, I'm an old guy now, so I don't need to get dressed up for anybody. But I always appreciate somebody who can tie a tie. That's a good looking tie knot as well. Sometimes I see people with ties, like, you know, I'm like, oh, you should even wear the damn thing if you can't tie it properly. Like and subtractive, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you mean there. Quantify. Oh, subscribe. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, YouTube doesn't really care too much about subscribers. They care about views. But we're coming up on 50,000. I have competitors who buy fake subscribers, which I just think is embarrassing, right? They claim they've got close to 100,000 subscribers and 50,000 of them are fake purchase subscribers. But I do appreciate that. I also quantify people who, I always tell them it's okay. They call and say, Dean, I passed my exams, and so I'm unsubscribing. And I always say, well, that's cool. I get it. I come into your life for a reason and a season. The reason is to help you pass your exams. The season is how long it takes us to do that, right? So I always tease them and say, hey, our reason and our season is over. By the way, YouTube doesn't understand that. YouTube wants me to try and sell memberships and coffee cups and all kinds of things. And I said, well, my channel's a little different because there's always a turnover in terms of people passing. I mean, I appreciate when people stick around, but it's kind of a finite time together. It's not like, you know, we're going to be there forever. And to be honest with you, I just think it would be a hassle to try and sell you stuff. And good news is I was telling somebody I'm pretty blessed, so I don't need to sell coffee cups and mugs and T-shirts. All right, Super Chat. Thank you so much. All right, hat trick in the house. There you go. Love it. You know, with the 66 is really funny, James. Some people find it easier. Some people find it harder. I don't know if it's the draws, but that 66 is all over the place in terms of what people think about it as compared to their 7. So, you know, Axa, this is probably going to sound weird. I don't know if Carolyn, our 24s are still in the house, but I think the 10 can be a slog. It can be harder than the 24 because it's just so much stuff. So I always think a 10 is when somebody gets a 10, I give them all kinds of kudos. I mean, that's a slog. I don't think for Carolyn, you know, we talked about this earlier, but I think on the 24, if you get down the banking and the trading, I think you can pass that easier than the 10. So I think the 10's a little tougher. That's just me, though. And like we said, everybody has different opinions on different exams. What are the MSRB questions on the 7? Well, I think I just went over that, Andrew. Did I just not go over? Were you not here? I went over G20. I went over G37. I went over nominal quotes, and I went over you can't switch your status from being a financial advisor to the issuer to becoming their underwriter. I think I did that. So put it on rewind. This is available as a replay on the YouTube, and it's also available on Spotify as a podcast episode. So you can always hit the rewind button. STC is a good vendor, Wes. We got no issues with STC whatsoever. Now that I just said that. STC's Qbank can be small enough that you can accidentally memorize questions and answers and think you're understanding concepts. So I would recommend if you have the resources. I know when you're starting out, maybe you don't have the resources, but it's not time to be frugal. And I would supplement STCs with a Kaplan Qbank, because then you have those 3,600 extra questions. If you're a Kaplan test taker, I think you can be hard to exhaust the Qbank. But STC does sell supplemental exams, so you can get some more questions there too. I'm always a big believer in having lots of questions. And to be honest with you, Wes, I don't think people are monogamous in their study effort. I don't think I'm the only person you're going to use. I don't think Kaplan's the only person. Most people have, lots of arrows in their quiver to get past these exams. So, by the way, not time to be frugal. As I said, get whatever you need. This is time to spend money on yourself. Make a sweat equity investment. Well, Ben, just get some sleep. 1 or 2 topics. Yeah. I have a video I have 2 videos. So the first video, Ben, has 200 and something thousand views. Can you believe that? I don't know if that's one guy watching it 250,000 times, but it's called SIE exam in 60 minutes. And then I had people wanting me to update that. And I thought, well, I don't want to make the SIE part 60-minute part do. So I came up with instead a replacement video. I think I didn't remove the SIE in 60 minutes because it's still helpful and it's 60 minutes. And I have a video that's called the SIE exam Mighty 90. And it's 90 minutes. And both those videos are to watch tonight before your exam or in the morning. It does go over those topics. Now, in terms of topics, and again, it's more important you get some sleep. So I don't like myself telling you this because I just told people you should be done by now. But that being said, the other video I have has 33 test questions from the SIE. It's about products. And so check that one out too. You could just go to the SIE playlist and they're right there in the front row. Well, Josh, yeah, I do make you subscribe to comment. I don't let, Josh, people are weird, aren't they? I had a guy who subscribed and so he could comment, Josh. And then what he came in doing was attacking the securities industry. And I thought, well, gee, my friend, I mean, I don't know why you're hanging out with us if you don't like the securities industry. And then, he thought the guy was so weird. He was like thinking that Vanguard is a criminal conspiracy set up to defraud him of a nickel. And I said, well, really, you're just really confused because Vanguard isn't a for-profit enterprise. It's owned by a shareholder. So you pick the wrong candidate. I mean, if you want to pick a candidate for that, maybe Goldman Sachs. But, so. All right, looks like we're done with that. Would you rate the difficulty? I think 65 can be harder just because the people taking it sometimes have no background in this stuff. It's like a completely different career. Whereas in the 7, people have done an SIE. Typically, it's something they, have been thinking about, and they typically have a little bit more familiarity, so to speak, than a 65. And so I think the 65 can be a tougher thing. All right, we got to get done here so we can do our drawing. Research reports. Who reads those in real life? Well, no human being has ever read one, Carolyn, and we're not quite sure if attorneys meet the definition of human beings. I'm joking. If you're an attorney, it's a joke, right? But hey, Carolyn, there are some people who have a following and people do read their stuff. We have a legendary lady in our industry who is now a general partner at Kleiner Perkins. Her name is Mary Meeker, and she was the head of research at Morgan Stanley, and she was known as Queen of the Internet, and everybody wanted to know what Mary said whenever she put out something. So there are people who follow them. They're considered sales literature is the big thing for you on your 24. Yeah, STC is good. Okay, now I got to come up with something to put. Don't do this yet because I got to get the Wheel of Fortune out here. So let me get the Wheel of Fortune out. And let's say if you want to participate in our drawing, what you win is the access to the coaching call on the tutoring page. And let's say tonight, what is going to be our, I got it. I am, that's too much. Let's do this. Okay, if you want to participate, hit into you got to put it just as I'm putting it into the chat. So hold on, it's sitting there. You go. Did that show up in the chat? So put pass there exactly as you see it, and we will do our drawing. Let me go get this to put it up there for you. Present, share screen. Can you guys see the Wheel of Fortune? And let me get rid of that comment there. Boom. All right. Any more entries? What a night. I mean, crazy. I apologize. I'm pretty much a stickler. If you're a regular person who attends Tuesday, I'm a pretty stickler for starting at 5 and ending at 6. Tonight I made an exception, so I wouldn't expect that when you join us on Tuesdays, we're going to be here till, an hour and a half. Usually it's an hour, and I pretty much stick to that. All right. Marcel, did you enter? Is Marcel still here? I tell you, that guy, if I was going to go to a casino, I want Marcel. He's got, I see Marcel's entered. Okay, let's see if Marcel wins again. That lucky bastard. Wheel of Fortune. Oh, I saw Marcel go by. Okay, Matt, there you go, my friend. So what you need to do is just go to Dean Tenney Tutoring .setmore.com and go to the class tab, and you will see coaching call for weekly drawing winners. And you just register there. If you can't find it, you can just send me an email at dean@guruexamprep.com and I'll send you the link. But you shouldn't need me to go claim your winning. All right, let's get rid of that. Boom. All right. Remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. And I'll see you next Tuesday, if not sooner. Bye-bye.